Hello and welcome to the latest video in this series. This is Math Explained, and I wanted to go over math symbols. So math in itself is very intuitive once you get comfortable with it, but when you first start learning it, the symbols themselves are kind of like learning a whole nother language. So I wanted to go over a few of those. The most obvious is greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, all of those. So you have these, you have this with a line under it, that with a line under it, and you're like, what the non-negotiable? And so sometimes, like, when you're little, they talk about alligator, so it's like an alligator, and it's eating the bigger number, and yeah, and it's pointing at the smaller number, I don't know. So, okay. Here's what the deal is. So you've got two kinds, first off. You've got these two and you've got these two. So if we look at it, so if we just look at these two right here, this is the greater than symbol. So if we look at this just as like you're reading something, right? If you have something like this, that was supposed to be a 3, there we go. You're going to read left to right, just like you would if you were reading a normal non-math sentence, right? So you start with a 5 and you say 5 is, and this is greater than 3, right? So you just read left to right. So in that sense, it's, imagine the alligator, it's opening its jaws because it wants to eat the bigger fish, and the bigger fish in this case is 5. So 5 is greater than 3. This is just greater than. So that means, like, if you look at this on a number line, so here's my, let me shrink these all down because I have a tendency to write too big. Then I run out of space. Okay, so here's my little number line. So here's my 0 right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 5 is greater than 3 just means that 5 is on that side of 3, right? So that's okay. If you, let's take this up a notch. Let's pretend that instead of 5 greater than 3, let's pretend that it had x is greater than 3. Oh, man. Now we just gone and done it, right? Okay. So here's my little number line. So here's 3. And I have some numbers to the right of that. Those are bigger, right? I have some numbers to the left of that. Those are littler. 2, 1, this would be 0. If x is greater than 3, then what that's really saying is that any of these numbers over here could be x, because we know that x is greater than 3. But here, let me make this more complicated. It's x is greater than 3, not x is equal to 3, right? So it starts super, super close to 3, but it doesn't actually touch it because it's greater than 3. Any of these could be x. So x could be 5, x could be 3.1. So it could be 3.1 is greater than 3, 5 is greater than 3, 5,000 is greater than 3. Any of those would be okay for x, right? Because we just know that x is bigger than 3. Okay, so this is greater than. Oops. Da-da-da. And if you forget, like what I usually do, so like we have greater than, that makes this less than, right? If you forget, you can always put it, like list it out, like write it out, like 5 is greater than 3. So I got these too big again. Here we go, because I'm cool like that. So if we forget, okay, well, so this one is greater than, this one is less than, but if I forget, I can always go, okay, well, I have, here's my number line, here's a 3, 4, 5 is right here. I could write it out in a sentence. I could say 5 is greater than 3. Because it is, right? 5 is bigger than it. So then this must be greater than. Okay. So less than just means less than. So it's on this same, like x is greater than 3. If x is less than 3, then that would be this stuff on the left side. So let me go over here. Put my little number line back out. Okay, so if I say x is less than 3. So here's my 0, 1, 2, 3. So you could have your negative numbers too. We'll get into that. If x is less than 3, then that means just that x is not bigger than 3. So x could be anything this direction. It just can't be 3. Like it stops right close to 3. So it just means any of this could be an x. So x could be negative 50, x could be 0, x could be 2.99, as long as it doesn't touch the 3. Okay, so now we have, this is, we make a list so far of what we have. So we have greater than, we have less than. Now we have this other symbol, so this is greater than, but it's got a line under it. So it's kind of like a part of an equal sign, right? That's equals. So this is greater than or equal to. So on our number line, if x is greater than or equal to 3, that means that x can be greater than 3, but it can also be 3. So here's 0, 1, 2, 3. If we draw this, so it's this, but it can also be right here at 3. So it's 3 or higher. So x can be 3. X can also be, so it could be 3, it could be 3.5, it could be 20. It could be anything greater than, but it can also be 3. A lot of times when you see this in math problems, they do this. So like here's your number line. 0, 1, 2, 3. If they say x greater than or equal to 3, what they do is they draw a circle and they fill it in. And then they would draw a line this way. So that's x is greater than or equal to 3. If you had x is less than 2, what they would do is they would draw a circle at the 2 and they would draw an arrow this way. But notice that circle doesn't get filled in, it stays open. So this is x is less than 2. This is x is greater than or equal to 3. So if it's equal to, the circle gets filled in. If it's not equal to, which is greater than, less than, the circle is left open. So okay, so on our list of stuff, we've got greater than, we've got less than, we've got greater than or equal to, we've got less than or equal to, we've got just a plain ordinary equal sign. And then the next symbol that I wanted to do, well, there are a couple. So sometimes you'll see this, since we have equals, so this is equals. If something is not equal to something, so x is not equal 5, you do an equal with a line through it. Not equal. You don't see this all the time, but you do sometimes. So we'll just put that there so you can see it. The next symbol that I wanted to discuss was plus or minus. This is a big one. So this is plus or minus. So you see this one with margin of error, like the average age is 5 plus or minus 2, right? But you also see it in places like the quadratic formula. So quadratic formula, we have x equals negative b plus or minus squared minus 4ac over 2a, right? So this plus or minus right here means that this is actually two formulas. So this is really, here, let me copy this over. This is really this one. And it's this one. Because since we're solving quadratics, there are two possible solutions. And in this case, our possible solutions are found using plus and minus. So it would be the negative b plus all of this, or negative b minus all of that. So this is really, this whole thing is really two equations put into one. So that's our plus or minus sign. Okay. The next one, let's see, there are all kinds of symbols that we could talk about. The next one I'm just going to mention is a radical sign. You've seen it. Radical. Square root. That's a radical. If you see, so like say square root of x. If you see this symbol all by itself, there's an understood 2 right here. But that whole little squiggle square root thingy is called a radical. So you have the square root. So this is square root. And you usually don't have that 2, so it's really just square root. But then you sometimes have a number out there, right? So maybe you have the cube root. So in that case, we're looking for the number that multiplies by itself 3 times to get x, right? Cube root of x. So if you had the cube root of 27, that would be 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 equals 27. So we're looking for the cube root. But that symbol is the radical. So it could be square root, it could be cube root. You could have like the 15th root of something. It doesn't really matter. We're just looking at that symbol, and it's called a radical symbol. Okay, I think that's enough on symbols because my video is getting a little long here. But yeah. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to mention real quick is a subscript. Sometimes you'll see something like that. Only usually it's because you have a bunch of different x's. So you have x1, you have x2, you have x3. This is not a math symbol. This is a label. So if you have x squared, that's the same thing as x times x. These are subscripts because they're lower, so sub. And these are just labels. So this means that you have 3 variables, but rather than call them A, B, C, or X, Y, Z, whatever, they call them x1, x2, x3. That just says, okay, well, this is your first variable, this is your second variable, this is your third. So that little number that's lower is called a subscript, and it doesn't tell you any math stuff. It just keeps the variables straight. Okay, that's a long enough video.